How many of you know what it's like to really have to have faith, to trust, not knowing what you're about to walk into, not knowing how to get yourself out of a certain situation, maybe a money issue of like, how am I going to pay the bills this month? Or how is my marriage going to survive another year? Or will my child ever be able to overcome that learning disability or make good decisions or ever come back home? Whatever that might be for you, it's hard to have faith, very hard. And faith is hoping in something that you can't see. Faith is trusting that things will work out when you really don't know the answer. And that's what God calls us to do. He calls us to have faith. Hebrews 11:1 says, now faith is confident in what we hope for an assurance of what we do not see. And so many times I've had to apply that in my life. Today I get to interview Dave Chatellier. He was a huge part of my rescue mission. If you have not heard about my personal story, I was kidnapped at the age of 7 by my father and taken to Jordan. And my mom, with lots of prayer, lots of faith, she was able to find the right men to put together a rescue mission and go to Jordan and get me back. And there's actually a movie made about my life called Desperate Rescue, the Kathy Mahone story. You can go back in the Redeemed podcast to the first few episodes and you can hear the details of that story. But today I get to interview Dave. Dave was a crucial part of my mission. He has many, many years working in the Army. At this point, he was retired out of the military, but his expertise and intelligence is exactly what we needed. He was the first man to go to Jordan on his own 2 weeks prior to anybody else. And his job was to try and locate me, to try to locate my father's house, and to figure out an escape route. He spent 2 weeks driving through the different roads between Jordan and Israel and Syria to figure out the safest way once they found me to how to get me out. So I am very proud to welcome Dave Chatellier to the Redeemed podcast. Have you ever found yourself struggling in the midst of life thinking, this is not what I had planned or hoped for? Well, then you are not alone, my friend. Life has its ups and downs, no matter how well we thought we planned things out. Welcome to the Redeemed podcast, where we will encourage others through personal experience, even when life does not go the way we planned it. Through various interviews, you will hear amazing stories of lives being transformed, even in impossible situations. My name is Lauren Burns, and I am the host of the Redeemed podcast.
Donnie and I were doing firearms training, and we had been doing hostage recovery. Everett Alvarez introduced us to your mom. We went to Dallas to meet her, sat there and listened to her for a while. She was just very convincing, compassionate. She was really well prepared. She had photographs and she had maps and she had phone numbers. She had done an awful lot of research to try to locate you. Told her about how much we thought it would cost to do this job. And we always looked at things like open-ended airfare. It's very expensive, especially if you're going into some Arab country. Lodging, meals, just the necessities to stay alive while you're doing one of these jobs. And we came up with a ballpark figure, which wasn't very close to the amount of money that your mom said she could raise. And so we said, well, we'll just spend a night here in Dallas. Let us think about it. We'll meet with you tomorrow and give you our decision. And Donnie and I stayed up most of the night talking about it. We decided that she was pretty desperate. And if we didn't do this job, there wasn't anybody around, really, another group, organization that was capable of doing it. So we told her to scrape together as much money as she could scrape together. We'd use it for expenses, and we'd see what we could do about getting you back for her. And we planned and looked at it several different ways and decided we needed to go over to Israel because it just was unthinkable to try to get out of Syria or Saudi Arabia or Egypt. We told her we'd do it for her, or we'd try to. We started trying to put some kind of plan together, calling everybody that we knew that had any input in Israel. Turned out that a couple of people that we'd worked for before that Donnie knew had contacts with Mr. Digley. And he was a colonel in the IMF, had a lot of pull. We got to thinking about how many people we would need to pull this job off. We thought we could do it probably with 4 would be better, but the 4th person would just be someone hanging on the outside. We called J.D. Roberts. Donnie had worked with him in the Army. J.D. jumped at the opportunity to do some real life stuff. We looked at our options and we decided we'd go to Israel. We got over there. Donnie and I had both worked for Mario Kassar on the Rambo movies.
Who is Mario Kassar?
He owns Calco Pictures. He was the owner, producer, whatever else it takes to put money into a picture.
So he was the movie producer for the Rambo movies, is that correct?
Yes. He took us around to the movie sets. We visited here and there and talked with Digley for quite a bit. Told Digley what our job was and what the plan was. And that's when Digley decided to show us the defenses of Israel. And Donnie's already told you mostly about it. He took us to the border. He showed us a double fence. He showed us a mined area. He showed us electronic sensors, cameras. It's virtually a no man's land, just impenetrable. So after we looked at that for a while, we decided the best next phase would be for me to go into Jordan and locate you, try to figure out at least 2 options to get out of Jordan, to escape evacuation ways, and try to come up with a plan on how to pick you up and get you out. The problem was everything your mama had told us had changed. It wasn't anything at all like it was when she was there. There's a major highway that goes through Jerash, and on the east side of it is where the city's at. It's an old city. When I say old, probably 1,000 years old. And on the west side of the highway is old Roman ruins. The statues, the Roman statues. Kids were over there digging down through stratas of land, finding coins and finding all sorts of stuff. And they were trying to uncover those ruins. So I used that as a cover because it was pretty open. I could go over there early in the morning before tourists started coming in and look at all of Jerash. I had a telescope with me, a monocular, so I could look at just about the entire town. Just couldn't pick you out, couldn't pick the house out, couldn't find his car. Just nothing looked the same. I was questioned several times by the people that were doing the work in the ruins and cops and different people wanting to know what I was doing there because I was hanging out with not any real purpose. And I told them that I was with the movie company and I was over there looking for a place to film another movie. And we were interested in doing it around those ruins and around Jerash itself. I pretty much got away with it. They left me alone. But I was in that town, I think it was almost 2 weeks by myself. I'd get up early in the morning in Amman, that's where I was staying, drive to Jerash, go into the ruins, try to spot you or spot somebody that would give me a key to where you were. Then I would go around real slow through the entire town, trying to pick up on you or your dad or anything that was recognizable. I just couldn't pick up on it. I just could not find anything that would guarantee you were even still there.
Dave, you had photos. My mom had given you binders of photos of myself and my dad and description of his family.
Yeah, but it turned out that the photos she had given us, it was your dad and her up on the roof of a home, and it had a wall around the edge of the roof, and they were sitting on that wall. Turns out that after she got to thinking about it, after she already got over there, that belonged to some aunt or some cousin. It wasn't his house at all. So I'd been looking for the wrong artwork most of the time. It was just, Lauren, it was just so crowded. And you could tell everybody knew everybody. Everybody had routines. Everybody had some place to go and something to do, except me. So 2 weeks to be on a site gathering intel is a long time. And the way this normally works is a person that does the intel goes in, gathers the intel, puts the package all together, goes out, briefs the team that's going to do the recovery, and they're out of the country. They're safe. Because my ugly mug had been around in that town day after day. So if they were going to suspect anybody of doing anything, it would be me. Mm-hmm. It didn't work out that way. I got up with Donnie on the phone. We decided it was time for him and JD to come in and to stage your mother somewhere close so we could get her at a moment's notice. Donnie and JD came in. JD was wandering around Jerash looking for you. Donnie and I went to the State Department to find out what we could do to locate you and how the State Department felt about American children. And they told us real quick that if a child was there, male or female, didn't matter, on an American passport, that didn't matter. If they were there with their father and he was Jordanian, the child was Jordanian. The father owned the child. So they shut us down right away. There's no way we could ask for health or welfare to locate you, because as soon as they got your name, they would go warn your daddy that someone was there to help you get away.
That would be a big red flag.
That wasn't at all a good thing. I had traveled up and down the highways in Jerash trying to find a way to get out. I had gone all the way down the highway that goes to the Egyptian border and the Saudi border. Just a one-lane road with a lot of big trucks on it, all of them running super fast, passing left and right, making 3 lanes out of 1 lane, dead camels all over the road. It was just a real strange place to be. I always carried a case of water in the back of the car with me, because if you stopped anywhere just for a couple of minutes, someone would show up on the side of the road. It'd be a Bedouin, but somehow they just appeared. And so I made as many friends as I could by giving water away. I took the road all the way down to Eilat. Eilat is down on the Gulf of Aqaba, to try to see if there's any way to get from Aqaba to Eilat. There's no way to get over there except swimming.
Is Eilat Israel's side?
Eilat's Israel. Aqaba is Jordan. I wanted to go down and see if I could see Eilat across the Gulf. And it's not even a mile across there, probably. It was so strange. On the Aqaba side, on the Jordan side, everything was dark and dreary, and you look right across the Gulf of Aqaba, and there was these people laughing and giggling, carrying on and swimming. It was just a party place. So it's just 2 totally different lifestyles, 2 totally different countries. On the Jordanian side, it was all military, patrol boats, police patrol boats everywhere. And they were only patrolling on the Jordanian side of the Gulf. So they weren't patrolling trying to keep anybody out. They were patrolling trying to keep people in. That was my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Israel didn't have any patrol boats at all running. None. So anyway, that I decided that was not a good way to go to try to get out of there.
Because you were thinking about just putting me on your back and swimming across. Is that correct?
Yes, I thought it was close enough that if we had some kind of distraction, a house fire or a car wreck or something, any kind of distraction, I could swim that length with you with no problem whatsoever. Yeah, I don't even think it was a full mile across there. It would have been a real easy swim.
But not with all the security around.
Not with all those security boats around. There's no way we could have made it across there. After that, I went up and looked at the Syrian border. That's to the north. And that was just a war zone. There was no way that we could get up there and get across that border and get into Syria that they wouldn't send you back to Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
So we marked that off, or I marked that off as a no-go. Just the only logical way to get you out of that country was to get you into Israel. So that's what we decided on and started trying to make plans. When we were in the embassy, Donnie happened to see a guy that he knew that had been in the Marine Corps. And it turned out this guy was the regional security officer for the Jordanian embassy. So he was in the know about all the people that worked there, everything that was going on. And he told us real quick, don't mention that you're trying to get a child out of Jordan. They'll probably lock you up even if they don't know who the child is. That kind of blew our minds. We hadn't even thought of the Allenby Bridge, but he mentioned it to us and said that's the best way to get out. Problem was, you have to have a proper pass to get across that bridge, and you have to apply for that pass in Amman. You have to apply for it in person. Just a lot of routine stuff to get a pass to get across that bridge.
And then to have a passport as well, you have to have an entry stamp on that passport coming into Jordan for
That's
it to look real. So I know you had, for my passport that you guys got for me, you had to also get the entry stamp on there.
That's true. When we got to talking to the RSO, we told him what we were planning to do, put our full trust in him, asked him if he would give us an expediter, somebody that knew the routines and knew the people and knew who to contact for what. And he fixed us up with a guy named Abadi. And I just called him Al for short. But Al was everything he was supposed to be and then some. He was able to go with Donnie to the passport office. He was able to be with your mom and get the entry stamp. I don't remember how much that cost. Donnie would probably remember that. Donnie was a fire truck full of money trying to buy stuff to get you out of that country. But anyway, he bought the stamp for Allenby Bridge. He bought the stamp for your passport. Al was just, boy, he was worth his weight in gold. That's all I can say. And the Lord just intervened on that, Lauren. We didn't know a single person over there when we got there. I had been running around. I'd passed your dad's house probably 30 times. And it's a wonder he hadn't been standing out in the yard or out on the street at one time when I passed. He would have recognized me as an American right away.
Yes.
Probably. The Lord just had his hand on this from the very beginning.
When you were saying that Don recognized someone, the RSO in Jordan, that's Jesus right there putting him in contact. And then even the movie production in Israel that you guys had contacts there, just the timing, every single piece, everything I keep learning about my story, I just learn more and more seeing God's hand in everything.
Just when we needed something, the Lord would just raise it up. We needed a stamp, inbound stamp for you and your passport. We were able to get it. We needed to get you and JD and Donnie and your mom across Allenby Bridge. Got that paperwork done. It just all came together piece by piece. A body knew so many people. He was really above and beyond the expediter we expected to get. Going around with your mom, trying to get these stamps. Meanwhile, JD and I were out searching the city of Drosh for you. That's when JD saw you on the bus.
At that point, you knew once JD found me and got eyes on me, that's when you were able to confirm that I was in Jordan, because there were times when my mom thought that maybe my dad had taken me to Lebanon, and y'all had to make sure I was actually still there in Jordan.
That's exactly right. Your dad had told your mother so many lies and so much stuff to keep her scared and upset. If it had taken you to Lebanon, that would have been a whole different story. That would have been much more difficult. He saw you and saw the bus and could identify the bus. Then it was just a matter of following the bus and finding a place to snatch you off of it. But see, we wouldn't have been able to do any of that without getting your mother over there. Your mother had to be a part of it, and she was a part of the whole thing. We wouldn't have found his house had your mother not come in the country. We wouldn't have got any of the stamps for you to get you out of there without your mother being there with you. She took a lot of big chances.
Huge chances.
I'm sure if your dad would have seen her, would have known she was in town,
yes,
she'd be in the Jordanian jail today. If she
absolutely. Yep, absolutely. She risked her life, and all of you risked your life. But yes, she risked everything to go over. When you guys called her, she was in Cyprus waiting for the call. Is that right? And then you guys called and said, "We need you to come. We can't find Ollie's home without you."
That's right. I'd seen you about a week earlier with your little schoolmates in the city square. I called it the city market, where they sold lettuce and chickens and whatever. But by the time I got the car stopped and parked and got out and got back over there, I didn't realize you were probably on a school bus at that time. Just didn't see you again. And I didn't see you well enough to be 100% positive that it was you.
Dave, tell me, during the actual rescue mission, y'all decided it was too dangerous to try to take me from my dad's home because his home was in the middle of the city. You guys had decided to get me off the school bus would be the safest route.
When you do something like this, Lauren, you look at all the pluses and all the cons on it. And being out in the open somewhere where there's no police stations or army posts or patrols or close neighbors or a lot of people, it's a real plus to find someplace like that where you don't have that around you. It would have been a totally different outcome, probably, had we tried to get you to snatch you out of your dad's house. And it would have certainly meant your mom going to jail, Donnie and JD going to jail. You wouldn't have known what was going on.
Right. Dave, I don't know if you know this. I don't know if I've told you this, but where the school bus stopped at the farmhouse,
yes,
those children had just started going to school a few weeks prior to my rescue mission.
Oh, they just started riding the bus?
They just started riding the bus just a few weeks before. I told my mom that soon after you got the rescue mission, we were at home and just recovering from all the trauma and everything that had just happened. And my mom began to ask me questions. And I had told her those children had just started going to school with me, and we had just started driving out to that farmhouse.
Lauren, that's just another example of God lining things up the way you wanted them.
100%.
Had to be. Donnie, JD, and I were running around in that country blind. We knew what we were looking for. We just didn't know where to look.
What happened the day of the mission, Dave?
We knew we were going to use Allenby Bridge. That was the only way we were going to get into Israel without getting shot or stabbed or arrested. We knew that it was about an hour drive from Jerash back to Allenby Bridge. And that was in good weather. And a lot of times it was so foggy that you couldn't even see the edge of the road. I made that trip several times just to make sure I knew what I was going to encounter in case I was taking you back to Allenby Bridge. Donnie and I made the trip several times together too. After the RSO had warned us about, don't let this out. Don't say anything at all about it in the embassy. Keep this close hold. You can trust the expediter, but keep him close hold too. In the back of my mind, I was thinking, I don't know this guy, and I'm trusting him with my life. I'm not quite sure I'm comfortable with that. And he was just all smiles and extra friendly. No, just super nice. Bending over backwards to do everything. I was paying him really good money. He had a good income from us. If I wanted him to go get something, I'd always, if it cost $1, I'd give him $5. He was really happy about working with us. A lot of things I didn't know about him. I found out early on that he knew everybody. He knew all the people in the embassy. He knew all the people at the bridge. As a matter of fact, his cousin was one of the guys at the bridge that stamped the passes.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Just had inputs everywhere. Anyway, on the day we knew that I should have already left, but there's no way they were going to be able to do that without me. We got up in the morning in Amman, paid our hotel bill, got in touch with the body, told him to meet us at Allenby Bridge to pick up the car. We wanted him to turn the cars in for us. And then we took off in the two cars. I waited in Jerash at a nearby gas station while Dawn, your mom, and JD went down to that little farmhouse, followed the bus. I watched the bus come out and go through town. I watched them right behind him in their car, followed him all the way out into the country. Then they came screaming back with you, and you were just a bundle of tears, and your mom was a bundle of tears. Pretty emotional.
I can imagine.
We traded cars, and I'd filled the red car up with fuel, and y'all took off. I was going to give you about a 10-minute start, and then I was going to fall in behind you. So in case any cops or anyone from Jerash came chasing after you, I'd be there to block them.
Dave, we switched cars so that no one would recognize us in the car that hijacked the school bus.
That's right.
So you took our car, the one that would have been recognized.
Oh, yeah.
So you were in a lot of danger. One, like you said, you shouldn't have been in Jordan still because you were the one there the longest, doing all the research, walking the streets, and the easiest one to recognize. And now, two, you're driving the car that was used to hijack the bus.
Yeah, and they knew it. What happened was the road going to Allenby Bridge had some real tight spots in it. And when they came up behind me, there was probably 8 or 10 cars.
When you say they, you're talking about the Jordanian police?
The Jordanian police.
Okay.
Yes. And they were just honking and flashing lights and turning on sirens and screaming. And I waited until I got to a real narrow place in the road and stopped in the middle of the road so they couldn't get around me to go chase y'all. And I sat there in the car, and they came up. I had some Snickers bars with me, some candy bars. I offered them some candy, and I know they thought, oh, the stupid American. What a stupid American. He doesn't understand anything. I'm quite sure they felt that way because I agreed with everything they said, but I didn't do anything. If they said, get out of the car, I'd say, yes, oh, yes, sir, and just sit there. Finally, they had my passport. They had my driver's license, and they had been waiting there to get the bus driver up to identify me because there's only one of me, and they knew that there was three at least in the house.
Did you have luggage or anything in your car at
Oh,
all?
no, I didn't have a thing. No, sir. I didn't save a single souvenir from Jordan. I don't think.
How long were you sitting on the side of the road with the police?
We were probably there at least 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes. And they were about to beat the bus driver up because he wouldn't identify me. But I noticed on the police notepads, they had the first number of the license plate on the car. So the
car
old
you were
bus driver
driving.
was pretty slick. He'd got a partial tag number off the car. And it was the same color. It was an American driving it. They had me dead to rights on everything. And then over the car loudspeakers, they started calling out the name of the airport, and just in almost a screaming voice. So we got her now. She's at the airport. They just threw all my stuff in my lap and took off. And they took off by going back through Jerash because it was a lot faster than driving that mountain road through all those checkpoints to get to Amman the way to Allenby Bridge. So I figured, I'll tell you, I was doing a lot of praying, Lauren, praying that y'all would get across that bridge safely. Anyway, I got to Allenby Bridge.
I've got a question for you, Dave. Why did the Jordanian police go to the airport looking for me?
The night before, your mother had called and made flight reservations for you and she on a flight going back to the USA.
Were we supposed to be on that plane, or was that just to trick them into looking for us at the airport?
No, it was just a distractor. We knew there was no way you could get out of the airport. That would be the first thing they shut down. You'd be caught there. I drove on to Allenby Bridge, got there, and the body was all grins from ear to ear, and he was happy, and the car was sitting there. He was patting his cousin on the back. His cousin was patting him on the back. They both made a lot of money from that. I paid the body what we'd agreed on and gave him a tip and asked him if he would take me to the airport. He said, absolutely. So we drove from there, going to his house in Amman. And about halfway, somewhere in between, he pulls down this little old dirt trail road and pulls up to a house. And I'm thinking, I'm running from the police. They're about to just storm in here and jump all over me. What has this guy done? Has he turned me in or gonna turn me in or what's going on? I had no idea. He comes out with the chicken.
A live chicken?
A live chicken.
Oh my
He
gosh.
come back to my car, and he said, this is the best place in all of Jordan for chicken. So he had a live chicken in the car with him then as he went to Amman. He went in and told me he had to change clothes, and he put on a little jacket, an airline jacket, Royal Jordanian airline jacket. And he came out, he had a whole double handful of credentials, all sorts of credentials. I got in the car with him, and he said, I'm a Royal Jordanian airline pilot. I fly 747s for the Jordanian airline.
Wow. And you never knew this?
No, I didn't know it. Donnie didn't know it. None of us knew it. Once again, that's just the Lord intervening, putting someone there. We started hitting checkpoints way out from the airport, but he just flashed his credentials and we drive right on through. Got all the way to the airport, and when we started in, I could see that everything was just locked up. The police had everybody against the wall. They were going through everybody's paperwork, just checking and rechecking, going through all the luggage. He walked me right into the airport, right through all the checkpoints, and right over to the Royal Jordanian airline ticket counter, where he knew the woman there. He knew the gate guard. He knew everybody there. And I said, have you got any flights going out today? And she said, we have one that's preparing to depart right now. And I said, do you have any seats? She said, we have one first class seat. I said, I'll take it. She gave me a ticket. She got on the microphone on the intercom, called the airline, told them to hold up. I was coming. And then I started to get on the plane. As I started to go to the gangway down to the plane, the cop was standing there in the door. And I said, oh, man, I remember I didn't pay the airport tax. And I had a handful of money, about $200 in Jordanian money. And I said, this be enough to cover the tax? Oh, yeah, absolutely. He was grinning from ear to ear. He actually ran me down the gangway. And the stewardess had already closed the door. She had to open the door to let me on the plane. It's just amazing.
Wow. That's amazing. Wow.
I got on the plane. I didn't even know where it was going. It was flying to Paris, nonstop flight to Paris. And we got to France. And I started through customs. I didn't have any luggage or anything. And I started through customs. And I took my passport and he looked at it and he said, you don't have a visa. I said, no, I'm not staying here. I'm going to America. My ticket is for the United States. And he said, no, your ticket's for Paris, France. And you don't have a visa. You have to go back to Jordan. Let's talk about this a minute.
Yes.
American Airlines had just opened a route between Paris and New York. I said, call American Airlines, have somebody come down here and give me a ticket, and I'll just stay right here in the airport, won't go anywhere. No, we can't do that. You have to go back to Jordan. And finally, the American Airlines person showed up, and they agreed to let me stay in the security locker where they keep secured items on flights. I spent the night in there, and the next morning,
Oh my gosh.
they put me on a plane. American Airlines took me to New York.
Wow. I can't imagine you actually getting any sleep that night while you sat in that airport, not knowing what was going to happen.
Lauren, I knew at that time that it was an act of God. Mm-hmm. After I had time to sit and contemplate it a while, I didn't understand. But now, God had a purpose for you. And he just used me as a simple tool to get you out of Jordan.
Boy, am I grateful. Grateful's not even the right word to say, but I've had a long time to think about my life and what it could have been like. And for each one of you to risk your life and to say yes and to see God's hand in every single aspect. Each one of you were praying and you're all believers. Like just every part of my story just blows me away. And I'm so thankful to you. I can't say it enough. And it's so rewarding for me to be able to talk to you and tell you thank you that I get to be a mom and I get to have an amazing career and have children and have a relationship with my mother. It's just amazing.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I fell in love with your mother the first time I saw her. Not a husband wife, not a boyfriend girlfriend thing, a platonic relationship, because she was so absolutely convinced in her mind that she was going to Jordan to get you back.
Yep.
Just a very brave person.
Yes, she is.
Lauren, the Lord led us through this. All the way through this entire rescue, you can see where the Lord just reached in and touched something or someone and made it possible for you to get out of that country, and did it on his time schedule.
Yes.
When he wanted it done. And he just arranged all the players, put them in the right position, the right place. Pretty impressive, I'll tell you.
It's very impressive. How often when we're praying over things, do we want to be 5 steps ahead of Jesus? And he's just wait on me. and I'm going to direct your every single path. If you can just trust me and wait on me. But man, that waiting is hard. My mom was in Dallas, and every answer, every phone call was, no, ma'am, we can't help you. No, you're never going to get your daughter back. No, it's out of our jurisdiction. She had to wait and she had to pray and she had to be faithful those weeks and weeks waiting. And then all of you came into her life. But nothing happened until she went and she fasted and she prayed and she waited.
And you can see where there was reactions to prayer all the way through your rescue.
Mm-hmm.
After you were back in the States, we had news reporters hiding in the bushes outside the office. We
Yes.
had television crews running all over wanting to interview us. If we were going to ever do another one, that was the last thing we needed.
Yes, that makes sense.
To get a lot of publicity. Then we had, who at the time we thought was our good friend, Neil Livingstone.
Mm-hmm.
He came to us, and Neil had been a client of mine for many years. And he just knew some very important people and rubbed shoulders with very important people. And he said, look, you want these people to leave you alone, you have to put this story in the public domain. Once it's in the public domain, then nobody else wants it. They won't go chasing after you to try to get it. I was already on another job somewhere. Neil convinced all of us that putting this story in the public domain is the only way to get these reporters off of us, and the only way we'd ever get any peace and quiet from the media. So Donnie let him pick 5 stories, 5 rescues that we'd done, where the parent had given permission for him to write something. Neil wrote the book, and then another friend of mine, Neil Russell, has a movie company in Los Angeles. He said, look, I can make a made-for-TV movie out of one story out of this book. And he picked your story.
Ah, that's how that came about. I didn't know that.
Yeah. He picked your story, and he made Neil Livingstone's doing. Lauren, our agent, our publicity agent, was also Neil Livingstone's publicity agent.
Ah,
As a matter of fact, he turned us on to this woman.
Okay.
I found out, a friend of mine called me from Germany, said, oh, I just read your book. It's here in Germany. I said, really? He said, it's an excellent book, excellent photographs. I hadn't really looked at the book. I didn't know really what was going on. I didn't really want any part of it because as far as doing intel work, gathering intelligence in these countries,
you're supposed to
my
hide.
cover was totally blown with my face in the front of a book. Neil Livingstone made this deal with Neil Russell, and through his publisher, he gets all the money for the book. He gets all the money for the video. Every time that video shows on TV, Neil just rakes in the money. We don't get any of it.
I never knew that, Dave. After my rescue, my mom had no money left. She sold the last pieces of jewelry she had to try to pay bills. And then we moved to Florida and lived with my grandmother so we could start over because she had nothing.
Diane would know more about this than I do because Diane worked finances in CTU for a while. But if I'm not mistaken, I had an open-ended American Express card. And I think I could charge $1 million on it if I wanted to, as long as I paid it off at the end of 30 days. It was interest-free. I believe that when we got through with the mission, spent all the money we got from your mom, spent all the money we had stashed somewhere, I think I still had about $30,000 charged on that credit card. Wow. So we had to dash out and do another job real quick to get enough money.
To pay off my job. Wow.
It's been a long time, but I'm pretty sure that's how it went.
Wow. You know that your picture is on the front of this book. I have the book sitting right next to me.
Absolutely. And my picture's inside the book all over. So is JD, and so is Donnie.
And my picture, my mom's picture, yes.
You get your face on the front of a book, it just narrows down the number of places you can go.
In your line of work, absolutely. You want to stay hidden. We changed my last name and we moved so many times because that's what was happening to us. One of the apartments we lived in when we moved back to Dallas, my mom heard footsteps on the roof and she called Rick Lambert and he immediately came over and said, "Kathy, hide yourself. I'm coming over." So Rick came, opened up the door with his gun in his hand and went room by room, clearing each room. It was reporters on our roof trying to get pictures of us, trying to find any kind of story. They were bothering my family members in Florida. So how are you supposed to hide and do your job when your picture's on the front of a book and in a movie and everything else?
Not just crazy. Lauren, it was
Mm-hmm.
absolutely insane crazy.
Yeah,
It's a wonder I didn't kill somebody out here on the farm because I was suspect of everybody.
I bet.
Your dad had an extended family here in the
Yes,
United States,
yes.
and I said he's pretty much a coward, but a blind hog gets an acorn once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I
Dave,
just,
I know you've done other missions and rescue missions.
I can tell you that now, in the day of cell phone, anything we did for you would be just about impossible. Bus driver would have had cell phone, he would have got
Mm,
in touch with the police immediately. You never got out of trash. It, there's still organizations around that say they can do these recoveries. The only way they can do them is if it's in a country that's so remote and so destitute that everybody they're dealing with is dirt poor.
mm,
It's the only way it could possibly be done. And then your chances of getting done are not very good.
yeah.
When Donnie and I started CTU together, it was actually 5 of us. After we did 4, 5, 6 rescues, 7, we started getting requests to go back in to the same country that we'd
Mm-hmm.
just been in and done one. I said, "Oh, that's not good. We were just in there and got away. I'm not going back in there again." We talked about it. Donnie said, "Dave, this company is all I've ever wanted to do my entire life. I wanted a company like this my entire life." I said, "Donnie, all I've ever wanted to do really is farm."
It's been amazing for me to be able to reconnect with you and Dawn and Judy and JD and even and Jim. I never thought I'd be able to have all of these conversations, and I'm learning so much about my own story. It's been really neat. I can't even express. And it's amazing for me to be able to share with my own family and my children all of the details.
I was really concerned for you and your mother because I felt like your daddy would be right on our tail coming over here trying to slip around and find you.
Mm.
I lost track, you and your mom both, shortly after y'all got back here to the States. It was like I never knew you. I met your mom in Dallas. I saw her in Jordan. Saw you that one fleeting time in Jordan when you got out of one car and got in the other. Never saw you or your mom again for 40 years.
So how weird was it whenever I called you up and we started talking? I remember you were like, "Wait a minute, you can't have kids. You're still that 7-year-old."
That's right. I saw a 7-year-old. I saw your mom trying to dress a 7-year-old in street clothes and get rid of school clothes while she was
Uh,
trying to carry you and get in another car.
I'm very grateful to Dave for doing the interview today, and not just doing the interview, but all that he has taught me over the past month. I have not talked to the men that rescued me since my rescue when I was 7 years old until the past 2 months when I started this podcast and I started writing my book. It's really neat how God opens doors. I was scared to start this process, but I wanted to be faithful and I wanted to be obedient. And the thing that I've learned and still learning is when you say yes to Jesus, when God calls you to do something and you do it to help others, to encourage others, man, does he minister to you every single time, whether you speak at church or do ministry or give tithes and offerings. There's so many ways that you can bless others, but God just blesses you over and over. I hope that you feel so encouraged listening to my story. I know my story's crazy, being kidnapped and rescued, and it's an amazing miracle, but we go through little miracles all the time. And it's a reminder, even these military men with all these years of expertise and knowledge, they went to Jesus. They prayed, God, we can't find Lauren without you. We can't pull off this mission without you. God's hand was in every single part of my story, every single part. So whatever you're going through, remember, God is there. It's hard. I've been in things in my life. I'm like, God, are you there? Are you really a good God? Can you hear anything I'm praying about? Because you get tired of praying and you get tired of struggling and you get tired of seeing your family struggle, your friends struggle, and life is hard. But he does see you. And like Dave said, it's all in God's timing. It's in his timing. So we have to have faith and continue to persevere like my mom did. If my mom would have just given up in those first few weeks and month of everyone telling her no, and if she just would have been like, well, I'm a single mom, this is way over my head, I'm just going to give up, what would my life look like? And you can say the same thing in your own life. What would your life look like if someone wasn't fighting for you? So I just encourage you to continue to walk the walk God's calling you to, continue to pray, continue to read your Bible and find those scriptures that bring you hope. As always, ask for prayer. Reach out to me, reach out to your friends, to your church, and ask for prayer, because there's power when two or more come together on this earth to pray. It shall be done in heaven. God, I thank you for Dave Chatellier. I thank you for your provision. Since I thank you that you chase after us, Father. For the person listening that is going through their own journey, God, they're going through their own struggle. They're so scared and fearful of whatever obstacles they may be going through. You see them. You see them when they're driving. You see them when they're cleaning house. You see them in those dark, quiet moments where they're full of fear. And I ask, God, that you would speak to them. You would move mountains just like you did in my life. You would move mountains in their life, God, that they would see answered prayers, that they would see that you are still good and you hear them and you love them and you chase after them. I thank you, Father, for your healing and your guidance and your mercies, and that you would begin to answer those prayers and that you would bring people alongside them to speak encouraging word to them. I thank you, Father God, in Jesus' name, amen. Thank you so much for joining us on the Redeemed podcast. And again, if you haven't heard my full story, you can go back to the first few episodes and listen. I believe it's episodes 2, 3, and 4. And there's also some other interviews that I did with Don and JD. And you can listen to those. And I have many other episodes of some talking about addiction, some talking about struggles of having a child, all kinds of testimonies of how God has redeemed and restored people's lives. If you would like to actually watch the videos, maybe you're listening today on Spotify or Apple, wherever you like to listen to podcasts, I also have a YouTube channel where you can watch videos. This one will not have full video, but my other ones do. And you can always find me on social media, Instagram, LBurnsPT. I'm also on Facebook, and I have a website, laurenburns.net. If you would like to be on the podcast and have a story you'd like to share, reach out to me on my website. You can fill out a form. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you have a fantastic day.